I'm with Matthew today. Matthew is a specialist on men and leadership and confidence, and particularly relationships. Matthew, I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Sure. I'm Matt Albiges, so I run the Man Over Matter coaching program, and it's all focused on men and particularly relationships, really, because my previous initiative was really with my partner, and we were working with couples. So we decided that we didn't want to work so much together on couples, like that's a whole other story. But from that work, there were certain patterns in guys that a lot of the guys that came along fell into two groups. One was what we could call the nice guys, where they were struggling because the woman was quite dominant and they were struggling for finding their voice, really, finding their space in the relationship. They're feeling maybe demasculated. This is the first group. And the second is the machos, where they weren't really that interested in relationships, and they struggled a lot to relate to their partner because relationships weren't really their highest priority. They were more into doing, tasks, and they were struggling really to see where the relationship fitted in with that. So that's really my focus, men. And, that's been my journey as well. My journey in the past, my journey into coaching was through being one of those people, particularly the first category. I was in the nice guy category, and my journey has really been to get a grip of that pattern, to see how, for example, by putting other people's needs ahead of my own, I really caused myself so many issues and was very unhappy, very dissatisfied in the relationship. So now this is really my focus on guys in relationship, particularly guys struggling to find their voice, find their leadership in the relationship. Because ultimately, if they don't do that, then their partner is likely to step up and become quite dominant. And then the whole polarity doesn't work and causes all kinds of issues. So that's really my story. I've done similar things to you, Sally, NLP, coaching, training, and these are the people I tend to work with.
So going back to your own journey, because obviously our own journey sort of gives us the focus on where we go. How long ago was it that you actually realised that you were in, as you call it, the nice guy category, the people pleaser? I guess we call it too, don't we?
Well, when did I realise? So
yeah.
Well, when my relationship was breaking down, really, sort of 2-3 years ago, I had a long-term relationship, which I was sort of telling myself that it was okay, and it definitely wasn't great. At no point did I think it was great, but I thought we could make it work. And I was particularly I was falling into the habit that I see so much, which is living in hope that something's going to change. So I could see that there were some things that weren't working. And I just thought, well, if I hang in there, by the law of averages, or something will just shift and something will change by some miracle. And eventually I just had to let go of that idea. Because my partner at that time was fine, actually. She was meeting her needs. She just wasn't really interested in the relationship in the way that I was. I had needs that were unmet. Yeah. And because of all the things going on, like around property and children and things, I was just wedded to this idea that somehow I had to make it work. And if I just hung around for long enough, as I say, I was really living in hope, which I would strongly advise anyone doing, by the way. Because how I see things now is that we can continue in hell for a very, very long time before recognizing it and letting go of it. So the question really is, the question that really shifted it for me through the coaching that I got done is, how long am I willing to wait and have my life on hold in this relationship, which is uncomfortable, it's not working, it's causing lots of issues for my kids as well, seeing me in that kind of a role in a failing relationship. So that was it, really. And then as that sort of broke down, so I did some training. I did some NLP training. That was massively helpful to me, coaching training, and got a lot of coaching, spent a lot of money on my own coaching around where I was at, what was not working, and trying to turn it around from being the victim or on the receiving end of this behavior to really seeing what it was about me that was allowing that situation to continue as it was.
What would you say to people then? Because you mentioned the children, it was the effect that it was having on the children in respect of, how they were seeing you. Because a lot of people, I know, one of the big things we all do is we don't want to leave a relationship because we don't want to affect the children. Now, I know my opinion on it, but, I'd like to hear yours, because obviously it's a lot of people just say, oh no, if I leave it'll affect the children, but what they don't see is the impact they're having on the children at that time. So what do you say in that respect?
Well, I'll tell a story and then I'll tell you what I think.
Yes,
so
yeah.
One of my wake-up calls in this failing relationship was seeing one of my children being bullied. And he wasn't serious, but there was a clear pattern there. He was being threatened or intimidated by one of his co-players in his sports team. And I was watching from the sidelines, just following the dynamic going on, and thinking how is he letting it? And at the end, I confronted him and said, "What was going on with that boy? Why weren't you standing up for yourself and asserting yourself? That was out of order. What was going on?" And he sort of didn't really say much, but then I thought, people don't listen that much to what we say, but what they do is follow how we are.
Yeah.
And I had to realize that whatever I said to him about standing up for himself and not tolerating bad behavior, that wasn't the example that I was setting him, that he was seeing with his own eyes.
Yeah.
That was basically his mum bullying me, mistreating me, unfortunately. So that was such a wake-up call. And I thought to myself, well, I'm really not leading by example here. So to be in integrity, I have a really high value on integrity, and that my actions and my words speak together.
Yeah.
And so I acknowledge that in that respect, they weren't. So looking back, I would say that the harm I did by staying in that toxic relationship wasn't only to myself and also to my ex-partner, with who wasn't at all served at all, by the way, by going along with it either, but definitely my children didn't witness anything good going on there. And my mission now is really to inspire them with a different kind of being, a different kind of energy. Now I've removed myself from that situation. I don't need to pretend that things are working a different way or that things are okay. Remove myself from that situation, and now I can lead by example more authentically.
Yeah. Do you see in your children now any sort of behaviours coming up that you think might have impacted them at that time? Beyond I know we just talked about the bullying, but I know with my own daughter, some of the things I see, like you, it's where I've demonstrated to other that behaviour hasn't particularly been good, but I see her doing it, not full on, but certain traits, and it makes me absolutely freeze and think, oh, I really need to help her deal with this, because otherwise she'll just turn into me. And much as, yes, I know we have this great journey as coaches where we've discovered ourselves, and hopefully we help people in that respect themselves, but it's when it's so close to you like that, I find it really hard.
That's right. I just go back to really what I said about leading by example. I believe if I think kids are very sensitive. Well, not only children, but everyone is very sensitive to how people are. So when you're with someone, I was talking to someone the other day who is struggling with assertiveness, and it comes across so strongly in how we are. Yeah. And I really believe when we shift that, when we turn that around, we can really inspire people. So I really like this phrase that I said before, which I'll say again, which is, children don't listen that much to what we say, but what they do is notice how we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, because I was this angry little gremlin almost, for quite a long time, because of obviously my own stressful situation. And I see that little gremlin in my daughter sometimes, and I think, gosh, that was, me bubbling around. It was almost, as you say, you're totally consumed by the fact that you feel like a victim, and it's horrible. It's I even now, I look and I think, oh, don't do that, Georgia, because that's something that I probably would have done previously. But obviously, we've still got a long journey to go. I mean, it's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I have this thing as well, our kids can be such great teachers to us as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holding up a mirror to how we are. Yeah. And sometimes I see them acting in a certain way. It might be a habit that I've got, or a habit I can see they've got from someone else. And it's just at that point, you see it so clearly, that pattern, that need that they're trying to meet, that let's say lack of significance, maybe it is, and they're trying to assert themselves or get some significance, or maybe they're lacking something, they're lacking that connection or love or something. You see the pattern so clearly in them. And yeah, I've learned so much from my kids in that respect, just seeing how they are. And there's definitely been some of my stuff that I've seen in them, like the example I've just given, where my son wasn't asserting himself properly. But yeah, so many others I could mention.
Yeah, I know one of the big things I like to hear and like to see, and that's the thing I always say to my daughter, is about being kind. You know, it doesn't cost anything, and I see around sort of LinkedIn and Facebook every other quotes and things all the time about kindness and being kind, and you think how many people actually do that, as opposed to, you know, as we talk about toxic, the things, you know, the awful things we can do. How about being kind? It doesn't cost much to be kind, or doesn't cost anything to be kind. It's just, and it's something that we forget. And I've got a client who I absolutely love, and I think he's the kindest person I've ever met. And listening to his story is really, I've really struggled with. But when you know somebody's so kind, I don't see it as a weakness. A lot of people see it as a weakness, and I see it as such a fantastic attribute. It's wonderful.
How do you get people to cultivate that or develop that quality, Sally?
For me, I encourage them in respect of recognising that that's a kind thing to do, it's a good thing to do, that it's, you know, and to me, it's a little bit about vulnerability as well. I think kindness comes along that scale of vulnerability. People don't think that if they show kindness, they'll show weakness. And I don't think that's the case. So to me, it's about talking about it, talk about what you did, why you do things, what actually happened, and how you feel as well. When you're kind to somebody, how you feel and how it's made them feel. And I think to me, that's huge. That's, you know, it's once you feel that absolute warmth in your body, in your heart, you know, when you actually do an act of kindness, or are generally just a kind person.
I love that. So that's a great insight. I love the thing about being awareness of how it feels. I definitely resonate with that, because I think the difficulty talking about kindness is, to a lot of people with a certain mindset, it's a bit counterintuitive. People would think, well, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just try and meet my own interests, or try to pursue my goals, you know, be relentless, rigorous, uncompromising.
Yeah.
You know, for most people in our culture, that feels like a better fit to what's going to make them happy. Whereas kindness, they sort of look at it and say, well, why would I do that? Isn't that just going to take me away from my goals, away from my focus? But I really love what you said about being aware with how it feels when you do, where you have that sort of energy with people.
But it is something I struggled with before, Matt. It was, sorry, I'm going to have to move around, I've got a light in me here. Yeah, it was something that I personally would have gone the route of what you're talking about, going, why would I do that? You know, what have I got to get out of it? It'll detract me from my goals. Whereas now, through my journey of my burnout, and through my own coaching, like you know, I've gone through and still going through a lot of coaching. I still have my coach. And one of the things I say now is, you know, for me, that realization of what kindness meant, and I say, and for me to feel it too, was a massive step for me. And, you know, and that's something that I'm still trying to sort of teach along the way in respect of my own family and things, is that kindness. It's, you know, yes, I was that person. I recognize that I can only describe it as a monster that, you know, I turned into through my burnout, or prior to my burnout. But now I would say, you know, I said to have that feeling was a big realization for me. So then to be able to express it and share it is amazing.
I think that's another great idea, Sally, about remembering when we've been the recipient of kindness.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit like gratitude. A lot of people talk about gratitude. Oh, yes. One thing we can be grateful for is when people have been kind to us. So I can think of people where maybe they didn't know me, they hadn't really connected with me, but for whatever reason, they decided to tolerate me, you know, to enable me to sort of be there in whatever bad space, bad energy I was in. And those people have served me massively. Thinking about, I had some emotional challenges when I was younger, you know, I was a bit narcissistic, you know, in my early 20s. And yeah, I met some people who really blew my mind because they were so kind to me. I was in such a bad space, and they were very, very patient. And as I say, even just allowing me to be with them really had a big impact on me, really affected me a lot. So, and yeah, over the years, lots of other people that have been kind in different ways, supporting me, giving me advice on different things, coaching. So it's good to remember. And actually, until you feel that feeling, that, as you say, that warm feeling of having received kindness, it remains a bit of an abstract concept, you know, because it's easy to say on an intellectual level, oh yeah, be kind to people. You might feel that sounds like a good idea, but you've got to really feel it to really believe it almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. And until you actually done something that actually resonates with what we're talking with, people are probably going, what the earth are they talking about? But I would sort of recommend to anybody to go out there and just do something nice today, do something that, you know, helps you, and see how it makes you feel. I mean, one of the things I always say is, people think I'm nuts for, and I was on a podcast interview not so long ago, and I was asked what's your one piece of advice, and I said, just go down the street and smile and say hello to people as you walk down. Just smile and see how they smile back. And I said, and then see how it makes you feel. And it is one of those things that, you know, people obviously there think you're completely bonkers because you're smiling and saying hello to the world, or they actually smile back, and that is lovely. It really is. It makes my day when somebody says good morning and things, when you're pootling down to the shop and things.
Yeah, it's a nice feeling. And, you know, we all have chances to do things for other people. And when we do them, as you say, it feels different. It does change our day, changes our energy.
So on the description of the event today, we put about reading the future. I want to know what you mean by that.
Yeah. I put a post up about this. It was a bit of fun when I originally put this. I went to a well-being event a fortnight or so ago here in Cardiff, and there was everything there, from, you know, tarot cards to reading the runes, to, you know, all the different modalities, should we say, of sort of future reading. And I was watching some talks, and I like to keep an open mind, although I'm not sure how much I believe into that particular kind of reading the future, because my feeling on that stuff is that it's really trying to meet people's need for certainty. You know, people feel very uncertain, and then someone comes along and says, well, show me your palm, and I'll read your palm, and I'll tell you what's going to happen to you in future. It's like, amazing. Yeah, I'm up for that. Here's my £10. Yeah. And I'm not making people wrong. You know, if people believe in that's great. I think that is really meeting a need for certainty. But there's another kind of future reading, which I talked about, which I really do believe in, which is about the quality of our action and how we are. You know how where you see people in difficulty, in big difficulty now, like there was a guy I was working with who had a lot of problems in his relationship. And I mean, he didn't really have a relationship with his wife. He was, well, they were struggling big time. There's no real connection between them. They didn't have anything in common, really. Not even a proper language in common. It's a long story, but he had, so, you know, you see someone today in hell, let's say, and then you look back at how did they get to that point, and what was the quality of the action? How have they been living to get to that point? And I don't want to sort of sit in judgment on people, but I think it's in my experience, from what I've seen, it's so clear that certain kinds of behavior and action lead to problems in future. So in this case, these guys have got together in a nightclub, you know, just hanging out, dancing. One thing leads to the next, and they're in bed and so on. And then the lady's pregnant, and they decide to get married and try to make it work. But really, there's no foundation to that relationship at all, apart from just a bit of attraction in a nightclub. You know, maybe he liked the way she was dancing, and she looked at him and thought he had the right look about him. What you know, that point of connection really was a very, very weak foundation for a relationship. And then you sort of, you know, if you imagine in a film, you know how they jump years in a film, like from one scene to the next, you jump from that scene of them dancing in the nightclub to them right now, married in a house with a child, but really struggling. And, you know, you can't disassociate those things, you know, that there's a continuum, you know, from that action or how they got together to where they are now. So in that sense, I believe you can predict the future. You know, looking at how things have got set up at a certain point and how they are now, and exactly the same now, by the way. You know, where you see someone and they're struggling, let's say they're lacking a lot of confidence, lacking significance, getting involved in some behaviours and some things that you might say are not really well advised. Well, they're going to end up in some problems. You know, they're going to end up with challenges. Just because of how things unfold. You know, the working of karma, we could say.
Do you know what? I never even thought that's what you were going to come out with. I was thinking he was going to get some cards out, wasn't he? He's suddenly going to turn into a tarot reader. But that's interesting, you're right, because actually it's all very well us having an attraction, but there's so much to that attraction to sort of move on. So actually when you're thrown together like that in that scenario, and again it goes back to how we affect our children, I guess, as well, with behaviours that, you know, you bring a child into this world having not really knowing each other at all. It's quite interesting. So tell me, I mean, obviously we don't know who the people are, but how would you deal with that then, Matt? What do you do?
So, by the way, there's so many parallels to this story and my own story.
All right, okay.
I'm going to be careful not to just repeat my autobiography, but it's quite similar in the sense that, so he is the one looking for help. She's not. She's actually fine. Right. Not that the relationship is working, it's not, but she doesn't care because she's meeting her needs, which are not in the relationship. So her needs are really certainty, financial stability, status, having her time. So she's actually meeting all her needs right there. And actually she meets her needs for love and connection in other ways, with her friends, hanging out with other women. She's still close to her family. So in that scenario, she hasn't got a problem, I would say. But he has got a problem because he's got unmet needs. So one of the things about the nice guy is that we tend to diminish our own needs and put other people's needs ahead of our own. And you can see in this situation, that's really what he's doing. He's accommodating everyone. So he's providing an amazing life, money, amazing house for his kids, you know, spending a lot of time with his, there's only one child actually. And so he's helping other people meet their needs, but he's not meeting his own need. And his own the need is not meeting is because he's really feeling ignored, rejected in the relationship. So he's not having that connection with another human being. There's no polarity, no attraction. So he's really unfulfilled. So again, the question to him is a little bit like the question that I was challenged myself, which is, for how long are you going to remain living in hope that something is just going to change by magic? And, you know, if you are going to live in hope, then in what other areas of your life are you also living in hope, and how well is that working for you? Because, you know, we've really got a part of the journey from nice guy to where we need to be, which we can talk about is about making sure that our own needs are met and doing that. So I'm not in the business of telling people whether they can save their relationship or not, but what I would challenge them on is any attitude which is anything that resembles anything like living in hope or blaming the other person or thinking, because, you know, the difficulty in trying to sustain that situation is that for as long as you're not meeting your needs, you can do that for a while. You know, we can hang on for a while, but it doesn't work in the long term because we start blaming the other people. So we probably start, even unconsciously, having a bit of anger or blame, even towards our children, towards our partner, because we're not meeting our own needs. But that is a really, really bad look for any guy, for anyone, but certainly for any guy. We need to be owning, you know, we need to be the leader of our lives. So that's the attitude that needs to be challenged. And then beyond that, what decision people come to is down to them. But I would certainly say, living in hope and putting other people's needs above our own doesn't work in the long term.
And I guess that was with him, that was probably a classic example, that he was providing everything and doing everything for somebody else, but where do you fit along the way? I think that's a huge thing more with men. I certainly see it more with men, that because I think it's a question you asked me when we first started chatting months ago, was, you know, in respect of men, how could I sort of understand? And I said, for me, I saw in my corporate world how much the man was, it was like caveman times. A man is still expected to do this, expected to provide, expected to, go and bash the cat, kill something for food and bring it home. And, you're still expected to have that huge masculinity, which is not really necessary. And some, as you say, quite a lot of women feed off that, and it's their right. They think it's their God-given right to stay at home with the kids and things. When it's not, it should be. People as a whole. You're a whole person. People are whole people. It's not, the roles shouldn't be defined like that. And I know that's probably quite an antiquated view, and or a strange view in some people's minds. But I just firmly believe that by having that expectation, as you say, having your needs met. You've got to think of the other person, and that I know in my corporate role, I saw that not happening a lot. I saw the pressure on the guys that were in any job. The pressure to bring something home was huge, and I think that causes a lot of the stress that we see these days.
The pressure to bring something home, as in like being the breadwinner, do you mean?
Yeah. Totally. We've still got that expectation that men have to meet all the needs of a woman, not the other way around.
So how do you see that, Sally? Do you think that men don't have that responsibility to? No,
I think I don't. I think it's a matter of choice in relationships. Obviously, if a man can't give birth to a child, that sort of thing. But when a child comes along, it's or even just in general. I just see that. I think because obviously, like you, dealing with men, I'm probably not putting this across very well, but dealing with men, the one thing I see is the pressure of being the provider still the expectation to be the provider. And I don't think that when we're talking about meeting needs, I don't think that often, a partner, a woman, man, whatever, it could be man to man, the relationship. I don't see that balance. I see a lot that the whole pressure has been put on the man to be the main breadwinner, to bring home, so that the other person can do what they need to do. But it's not meeting everybody's needs. I don't know if I've explained that very well.
What would you say to women, Sally? Should women aim to be the breadwinner?
I don't think it's not necessarily about being the breadwinner, but it's at least supporting what a man's needs are. If you're expecting a man to be a breadwinner and you've had that conversation and everybody's happy with that, there is an element that says that you need to support that role so that his needs are met as well, so the stress isn't completely on him. How you do that is down to the individual. It's down to the couple, rather. It's not down, it's not, the expectation is too high.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's great that both people try. I think both parties in a relationship should aim to meet as many needs as they can on their own, to be self-sufficient in meeting their own needs. That should be the aim. But obviously, in a relationship, our partners love us a lot and they want to help us meet our needs as well. So there can be times where our partner is helping us meet our needs and where we're helping our partner meet their needs. But I guess part of being responsible for ourselves, being grown up, is that we try to not to impose on our partner any more than we really have to, because they've got their own life. They may be our partner, but they're still an independent human being. They're not there. The purpose of their life isn't to help us meet our needs.
Yeah.
The thing I was just going to say, in terms of men in particular, it can be quite a good energy for men. This idea that the man is providing for the woman and for the family, that generally feels quite good to men when they can do that. Where they feel that they've got that clear role in the equation and that they're valued, appreciated for the work that they're doing, whatever your standard of living or whatever you're doing, that your efforts to provide are being really received and appreciated by your partner. That will tend to give the man a feeling of more masculinity. Whereas in the opposite scenario, where the woman is, let's say, the main breadwinner, the leader, then that will tend to not feel so good for most men. They'll be sort of demasculated in that situation. which eventually won't feel any good. So I think you're right. Every couple's got to find their own balance. But so I mean, just going back to this example with the guy, I would say his energy, even though he was providing.
Yeah.
So you've got a paradox in this situation, because he's actually he's providing an amazing life for his wife and his child. Yeah. But in terms of his energy, this thing about not meeting his needs, his main energy is really accommodating. He's like going along with. Yeah. So accepting that it's like tolerating a situation where he himself isn't meeting his needs. Yeah. That I would say isn't really masculine energy. It has like more of an accommodating, supporting kind of energy behind it. So you've got like a paradox, these two different things. But that particular dynamic, of him supporting, accommodating, giving everyone else what they want, but actually not getting what he wants, what he actually needs, or a way of understanding what he needs to do in that situation, is to assert himself more into the relationship and actually say, no, for this to work for me, this is what I need. I can't live in a situation where I'm being ignored, where my wishes are ignored and not taken into account, and where people just go off and organize things. I need to feel, I need to be involved in what's happening in this house. Otherwise, this isn't my place, So he actually, even though he was providing in that case, he wasn't asserting himself correctly. So in a way, he needed more masculine energy than he had. And by the way, I think his wife would really like that. If they were going to get dynamic back, that generally the guy who knows what he stands for, knows what he's about, and asserts his priorities and will into the relationship, even where there's a debate, his partner may not agree with everything, but she will at least respect that. She could say, yeah, okay, I don't agree with all that, but I've got to, accept, your priorities here, and generally you've then got a chance to redevelop a sort of attraction polarity. Whereas if the guy is perceived as weak and just going along with, that won't seem to feel any good for either the man or the woman, because the woman's not going to see that guy as her hero, her man. That's it. That's my strong champion. It's because he's just going along. And for the guy, he's going to be feeling demasculated.
So how do you coach somebody in that scenario then, Matt? What would you do?
So there are things that we can do to enhance the masculine qualities. So, for example, one thing is about following and leading. So in that scenario, even though they weren't really talking that much, as it turns out, but really in terms of what was happening day to day, she was the leader and he was following. So there's exercises that we can do where we play with the following and leading. So we get the couple. One example is we get people to touch by the back of their hand, and do like a dance of following and leading. So they'll take it in turns to be the follower and be the leader, and just to see how it feels to follow and to lead. Yeah. Because in that situation, so this is an example where you've got two people together. I'll come on to the single person, but if you've got two people together, that's really good, because what you quite often find where the woman is more dominant is that she won't like the following very much. It'll feel a bit alien, a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. But, she may not say quite like this, but it'll be like, I don't feel quite so good in this. I'm normally in charge around here, so why am I following? And the same for the guy, it'll feel quite different. It'll show him the feeling of his partner following him, in the game. But as we know, how we play a game is kind of how we play life as well. So we definitely learn something about the dynamics. So that's the thing together. And then individually, that for guys, things that work really well are like doing some competitive sports, hanging out with other men, getting outside our comfort zone. There's an exercise I really like where we get people to, because one of the things that the nice guy has is they don't like rejection. Feels really bad. They tend to not put themselves in situations where they can be rejected. Yeah. So one thing we do is get people to look for rejection. So what might that look like? So I had the other day I was buying some clothes, and so I'm going to the checkout, and I say, so can I have this shirt for free? And then he's like, what? can I have this one for free? She's like, well, why? That's a great question. Why not? Well, I can't give you it for free, but I can give you a discount. Would that be okay? Yeah, sure. That sounds good. But, you know, in asking for these things, is it possible that people are just going to turn around and say no? Of course, you know, if you go into Tesco and ask for your groceries for free,
yeah.
but it's working that muscle of, do you know what? People are going to say no, and I don't care because I'm doing this. This is my exercise. So there are lots of things that we can do like that to cultivate that confidence and leadership feeling. So, yeah, that's what we tend to do. That's
really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I like the analogies of the shopping as well, where somebody can just say no. It's quite possible they just say no, but actually you're more likely to get, you know, somebody actually talking about a way forward. So that's really interesting. I'm going to note that down and use it. I'm going to steal that one, I think.
Steal everything.
Yeah. So what other types of people, or what other scenarios do you generally come across when working with sort of, you know, relationships and things?
Well, it tends to be, it may not only be the relationship where's the challenge. So people with this pattern that I'm talking about, the nice guy pattern, they won't only be having issues in their relationship, although that will be one area where it's playing up for sure. But they're likely to also be having problems at work, in their business, the relationship with their kids. And it's all connected to that pattern or that energy that they've got. They're projecting a sort of weak version of themselves into the world. And that's going to be inviting people to cross boundaries in all kinds of ways. So, and also it can link a lot to like procrastination as well as another really, this can really feed into a lot of procrastination because you can just lead to paralysis because you're feeling uncertain, you're feeling unclear about what you need to do. So the goal is really to get clear, you know, and the work I do is around, you know, purpose, mission, vision, goals. That's part of it, you know. Generally get really clear on that stuff. We tend to shift into a more energized, more empowered state. And then the kind of exercise I've been describing, you know, are really useful to work that muscle.
So we've talked about the nice guy. So what about the opposite?
The macho.
The macho.
Yeah. the times that I come across this guy, it's almost always his partner that is looking for help. The macho is very rarely looking for help, in my experience, because you know they're good and relationships isn't really their thing. They don't need a coach. They just need to smash it. You know, they're just in the doing, and they don't really value relationships that much. The time when it comes into focus is where things are falling apart with their partner, and maybe their partner has instigated something jointly, and then we would see them together. And then it will come out. Then it'll come out through the conversation that the guy is very much in doing mode a lot of the time and isn't really making the time for the relationship. And part of the challenge is for them to realize that women have got different needs in the relationship to men. So for this kind of man, they probably don't want that much intimacy. If I can draw a line between intimacy and sex, they probably do want sex, but they probably don't want much intimacy. Absolutely. And so beyond the sex, they probably just want to do their thing. You know, they're probably in creating, doing mode, you know, out there with their business, with their work, whatever. They tend to be quite focused. And so the journey they need to go on, if they want the relationship to work, and, you know, when they consider it, they do generally see the benefits of the relationship because they realize that their partners really love them and support them in all kinds of ways and do amazing work with children and all kinds of things. But it's really recognizing that the partner has got different needs and that they need that feeling of connection, because, you know, intimacy doesn't work quite the same way for women as you know, they need to feel that connection more. It's not just a physical thing, which it can be for men. And there's this thing that we talk about around allowing. So one thing we encourage the macho to do is to allow their partner to influence them. Allow their partner to influence them, because they tend to not do that naturally. They tend to be quite uncompromising. And then if they can soften that slightly and connect and hear their partner, then they tend to get a bit more connected.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So
sorry, I was just going to say on the machos as well. So these guys, you know, you've got this like scale of masculinity from, like, if you imagine the scale from 0 to 10. So these are the guys at the top end. You know, they've got pretty much all masculine energy and not much feminine energy. So another thing that can work really well for these guys is to strengthen their feminine energy.
Oh, right, okay.
Which might look like things like doing things that are more creative and imaginative. So it could be, you know, listening to music or playing music, or doing something that's more expressive and physical. That tends to be more like feminine flowing energy, and it may not feel any good for the macho guy to do that, but that can help just to soften it slightly and bring him back down into balance. We're looking for about an 8 out of 10. It's like dominance. So they don't want to be a 9 or a 10 is like alpha male, unconfident. That tends to not work out so well. Anything less than an 8 tends to be the nice guy to some extent. So we're looking for that middle balance, which I say is an 80% of masculine energy. So for the people that are more towards 100, I say I don't deal with that many of these people, because generally they're not really looking for help. But where I do deal with them is generally as part of a couple, and they can work on that by enhancing the feminine energy. There's a few different ways they can do that. I've had a couple of clients come to me, and it's initially it's a case of, well, I don't think I really need help, but you know, I've been suggested that I come to you, and you find that actually, they as you say, they are pretty confident, and you know, on the masculine side, they're pretty much high up there on the scale, but there still is that element that goes, you know, actually, you do need some support. You do need some to just, as you say, quite often it is just softening the edges and making them realise that, you know, life, it doesn't have to be that battle. You don't have to be that, you know, as you said, the alpha male 100% of the time. You are allowed to be, you know, a little softer. And I've had a couple of people like that, and it's just, you know, well, I don't really need you, but I'll come to you anyway. And you think, okay. So. That's right. The thing about it, they don't need you. And the other challenge there is that if they could be struggling with something, let's say they're struggling with their relationship, but that's not to say that they're ready for help or that they want to take responsibility. Because one of the patterns with these kind of people is they tend to like to blame other people for things that are not working. People aren't really coachable, or not easily coachable. So I don't want to work with someone like that if I thought they were really sincere in wanting to address it. And by address it, I don't mean blaming someone. I mean actually taking it on themselves. What is it that they're doing that is causing the problem? Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I said the whole coaching scenario for us, it's very interesting, the types of people you meet, and like you, if it's somebody that I really don't feel that I can work with or help, then I can't do it either. I can't actually put myself into it, because you know you're heading to a path to nowhere, to be basically. And I have had somebody who's come to me, I was saying that scenario, I don't really need you, but I was told that I should come and see you. And I think, if someone said that to me, I would actively discourage them from doing it, and they would have to convince me strongly. So I would say, well, do you know what? You're fine. You know, you're right. You don't need any help. Things are going great, aren't they? So why are we having this conversation, and get them to convince you actually? And only at the point they can convince you that they really do want to go on that journey would I even consider working with someone like that.
No, I must admit, I just sort of, okay, you know, you don't need me. You know, and I thought either come back at some stage, or you'll find somebody you can work with that can actually pull that out of you, because I certainly couldn't. It was too much in your face for me. It was like, whoa. So, which, you know, I find that too much.
Yeah, not everyone is ready. You know, they sometimes people need to wait for that big event. You know, a lot of people have a breakdown of one kind or another. It could be a redundancy, a divorce, something, and then they need that to shake them out of their state where they are.
Yeah. I was saying that I found one of the things, because a lot of people ask me why I prefer, why I don't work with women. I said, because working with men, I think with men, when you've made a decision to do something or a decision to change, you have made a positive decision to change, to make a change, or if you want some support in something, there isn't anything sort of flowery around it that you might not. And I find that really refreshing, and that is much easier to work with in terms of when somebody is out there and ready. They might not know what it is they need to change, but but they certainly know they need a change in life. And I find that it much better to work with.
You find men are more ready to take action?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Certainly the experiences I've had so far, definitely. Whereas I find women, I think we've had this discussion before, there's so much out there that you can procrastinate. You can think, oh, well, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do a bit of self-help, maybe I could do this. Whereas men, you actually go, do you know what? If I'm reaching out for a reason, and I'm ready. And I think that, to me, that's, when I come across that is so good, so refreshing. Yeah,
it's interesting with women. I don't know whether I can generalize that much, but it's true. Women with lots of feminine energy tend to be a bit undecisive. Well, depends on what they're doing. Depends, this may not be a challenge for them. Depends on where they are in their life, who's around them, what's going on. But for some women with a very strong feminine energy, if they want to, for example, start a business, then they probably need to cultivate some other qualities.
Yeah.
Really varies where people are at. I've met women that are very action takers, really willing to take action and things. I mean, I guess you're in that. You'd consider yourself in that category, right? So, presumably you're not the only one.
No, I'm quite. If I'm going to do something, I make a decision to do it, and that's it. I'll stick by it. It's just really funny because I don't know if you've been watching I'm a Celeb, Get Me Out of Here. I saw a prime example of it last night. There was they do the bush tucker trials and things, and they have to decide. They get asked a question, and they have to decide A or B. James Haskell's in there. Big rugby player, very alpha male, I would say. He does have quite a nice soft side. I like him. And then you've got Kate Garraway in there, and he got really cross with her because, it was basically put your hand up if you're A, or put your hand up if you're B. And she put her hand up, for A, and then said, oh, well, actually, Nadine has said that she actually might go B, so I might go B. And he got really cross with her. It was like, you're either an A or a B, make your mind up. And she said, well, just need to think about it, James. He went, no, it's a simple question, A or B. And he's like, whoa.
That's a classic masculine and feminine energy right there. The masculine is like straight line, A to B. You make a decision and that's it. And feminine is, well, it could be this or it could be that. Or it's quite different.
I wished I'd recorded it because I could honestly say it's something I would use in coaching and say, look at this, look at this. This is such a good example. It really was interesting.
It depends on what your goal is, doesn't it, Sally?
Yes, it does.
For a certain kind of action taking, that feminine energy isn't going to help very much. It's going to take you maybe around in circles.
Yeah, absolutely.
If your goal in coaching is to get from A to B in the quickest, most effective time, then you're really talking about masculine energy.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but I don't think all women need to or want to cultivate that strongly. It's like our society does bring that out in women, the whole education system, having a career, it's kind of inducing women to be more masculine, really. The problem is for women with a feminine essence, they tend to feel better when they're more in the feminine energy, which is more like flowing, emotional, connecting with people, laughing, dancing, singing, this kind of feminine, these things that bring out the feminine energy. For women with a feminine essence, they tend to feel better when they're spending more of the time in those activities. So this is the thing I love. One way of start thinking about men and women, like a man is like a swimming pool. It's like all regulated, the temperature's this, and it's got this amount of chlorine in, and it's measured and all sort of set up. And the feminine energy is like the ocean. It's like in different directions all at the same time, but it works in the sense, it's more like poetry, it's like that has that free flowing quality. And what most men try and do is they tend to box in bits of the ocean and try to make them more like a swimming pool. But the problem with that is that the magic of the feminine energy isn't in turning it into swimming pools. It's in looking at the ocean, the magic, the life, the infinite sort of quality of it. It's a different. So I don't.
That is a really beautiful analogy. I like that.
So I say a lot of men try and turn the woman to be more masculine, like set up processes and things, but that isn't necessarily what's going to make them feel good.
No. Oh, it's been brilliant talking to you. I could talk to you for hours. So,
me too. I've loved it.
Yeah. So where can people find you then, Matt? Where are you and how can they work with you?
So there's my page, Man Over Macho. I've got my site, my Facebook page as well. So I'll include the link to that under the video so people can find me through that. Facebook is the place I mainly hang out. I do some stuff on Instagram as well, but Facebook's the main place that I hang out. So,
tip for today on a Sunday? Sorry,
what was that?
A tip for today on a Sunday?
On a Sunday, I would say go and enjoy yourself. So if you're a guy, I'm going to split it for men and women. So if you're a guy, go and do something physical, get outdoors, maybe go and hang out with some other guys and connect that way. If you're a woman, maybe relax, take it easy, read a book if you're into that thing, maybe whatever is going to feel good to you, just to replenish your energy.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you.
Welcome, likewise. Speak to you soon.